welcome back to Real Ag Live. Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday season. I know I did, but I am really happy to be back at it, back into a bit of a routine here, and ready to face 2021. So, with that, I'm going to bring in our guest here today. I have here with me Doug Alderman, who is the VP of Sales and Marketing with Pride Seeds. How's it going today?
I'm very well. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Had a good holiday?
Had a wonderful holiday. Yeah, it was good to have some downtime. It was really enjoyed the time that we could spend just to kind of get away from things and away from reality a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are now kind of through, like I said, through 2020, and we are all about looking forward. We are this week on RealAg Live. Throughout the whole week, we are doing a Outlook week. So we are going to bring all of the. We're going to talk to a few different people and bring some of our insight that you need to look out for going into 2021.
Sure.
So as a Pride Seeds, uh, well, you are an agronomist as well. So, do you want to talk about what some of the things Pride Seeds is looking forward to heading into 2021?
Yeah. So good question. I guess from our perspective, we start a lot of our planning right now in January, and for the springtime, planning our plots and some of the new products that are going to enter into the lineup. Our PCR trials, our pre-commercial trials, are are getting organized and lined up right now, and those are the things that we look forward to every year to evaluate new products and new traits, new technologies that are going to enter into the lineup. Um, and all of our marketing and all of our things that go along with that, production plans and planning to grow the crop. It's a busy time of year, and it's kind of nice to have that break and going into January, because from now on, right through the month of January and into February, it's pretty full.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little different because I don't know if you're someone that would typically be out and about at farm shows. So, definitely a little bit of a different scope this January. I know I'm feeling looking at my
Hmm.
calendar going, why am I not on the road? But it's
Yeah.
a little it's good to be able to have these discussions still. So when you're looking at making these decisions headed into 2021, how does it help to look at data from the previous year?
Well, good question. Data is part of what we do, and from a seed company's perspective, and probably more importantly from a farmer's perspective, um, we rely on data. We would rely on what performance that the previous year's crop looked like, and what the hybrids did, what the varieties did in corn, soybeans, and we have to evaluate that. But we also have to be careful not to hold a lot of or all of our decisions based on the previous year, because in certain things we have to look at what the weather was and the fertility and where those trials and so on were. But to have a collective look at it, take everything into account, and evaluate. We look at a lot of head-to-head trial results and across a lot of different geographies. So those are things that the farmers need to keep in mind for sure, uh, going into a year of planning, and what they want to look at for their own operation.
Absolutely. So we got a question here from Lindsay. She says, Pride is well known for its knowledgeable market agronomists. How does the company keep those staff on top of their game?
Well, that's a good question. You mentioned that I'm an agronomist. I guess I am. I've held my CCA for over 20 years, but my role today isn't really as much as part of being agronomy in the field as much as it was at one point in time. But it's still important for us, and at least with our company, I think every agronomist, market development agronomist, and everybody that's involved in different facets of the company all have either a farming background or an agronomic background at some point in time. So it's continuing education. It's attending the all of the uh, webinars. This year's Southwest Ag Conference is coming up here in a few days, and all of our team will be attending that. And it's just important to make sure that we're staying on top of all of the technologies and the and all of the agronomic pieces that are involved through our industries. So, yeah, we pride ourselves, so to speak, in having a really good team and really good sound agronomic knowledge amongst the team, and that's how we keep on top of things.
So you mentioned a bit about technology. Do you want to talk about some of the technology that has been developed within Pride when it comes to hybrid selection?
Yeah, so I mentioned our PCR pre-commercial trials. We have a large research trialing that AgReliant Genetics performs, looks after every year. There's a lot of trials and a lot of different hybrids that we're evaluating, and it gets to, the pre-commercial stage, and it's kind of like in Canada we would refer to it as, our junior hockey players, and prior to really making the big leagues, and that's what we're evaluating right now, and in those trials, when we look at bringing in some of the new technology, the breeding is part of that, but incorporating some of the traits and so on into our genetics and into our product in the lineup is very key, as well as seed treatments and the decisions that we have to make on those. One of the buzz, I guess, we talk about here in over the last month or two is rootworm resistance to the BT technology, and the BT technology has been around for a number of years. It was brought out in 1995, 96, and it's evolved over the period of time. There's different traits out there that contain that technology, and part of the technology was around corn rootworm, and we've seen some resistance to that technology as late as last year in a couple of counties in Ontario. And I think one of the things that we have to realize as an industry is that, there isn't any technology that's bulletproof. We've got to make sure that we're using sound practices, good stewardship, and making sure that we're treating these traits with responsibility. And I think if we do that, we're going to avoid some of this resistance. And I know there's talk on how we're going to combat this. The Midwestern U.S. have seen this for a few years. And the biggest thing is crop rotation, and we've preached that for years in agronomy, and the industry is good, sound rotational practices. And but we also realize that there's areas and situations where we can't always have good crop rotation, that we have to have continuous corn on corn on corn on corn sometimes, and that is going to allow for a potential of resistance to a trait, whether it's pyramid trait or stacked or what have you. So how do we work through that? Well, again, crop rotation is number one. If we can work through the crop rotation piece, the second piece, I guess, is maybe having to deal with some soil applied insecticides to deal with the pest. They've talked about seed treatments and being able to treat the seed with certain insecticides to offset the implications of corn rootworm. But we've got to remember, what the limitations are around those, and it's really only going to be as good as the thresholds that they can withstand. So again, crop rotation is number one, and being able to work with your agronomist, regardless of what company you're working with, but work with an agronomist to help figure out that plan.
So, does rootworm attack any specific weeds as well? So, like, does it overwinter? That if you've seen rootworm last year, do you need to be cognizant that it could be showing up in your field again this year?
Yeah, if you've seen the adults fly, and we'll typically see them start to be present in a crop around that flowering time, because the adult rootworm beetles will feed on the silk of corn. And in Ontario, we see there's two types. There's the western and the northern. Western is a little bit different looking than the northern. Northern is more of a green color. The western is yellow striped. But typically we'll see the western rootworm, the beetle, and then or the adult in the fields. And if we see that, that's a good indication that we're going to see it next year, and we can start to make our plans already ahead of that.
So while we're talking agronomy, do you want to talk a bit about some of the things you're recommending to producers to have an eye out for this spring?
Excuse me. I
No
had to
worries at all.
choke. Uh, yeah, so I think as always, as farmers, as customers, we are always talking about getting ready for the spring, and planting is one of the biggest activities that is involved with springtime. And this time of year is really good opportunity to go over your planter. If you've got the opportunity to bring it into your shop, or a lot of guys will already have done this once they finish off the planting from last year. But to really go over that planter, we can't afford downtime while we're planting. So, making sure that the planter's level, making sure that the bushings and the bearings, and the double disc openers, the depth wheels, closing wheels, everything from hydraulic hoses to the snap ties that hold the hoses together. We want to make sure that everything is in good working order. That's one of the things that we need to be concentrating on as farmers as we look towards the springtime. If we have our planter in top running order, working order, that's one of the biggest keys. I think for me, we have to have a plan. We have to set our goals, and it's no different than making goals for any business. We have our goals, and we have to have a plan around those. What do we want to accomplish this year? And to me, as a farmer, we want to maximize the yield on every acre that we can, whether we're farming 50 acres or 5,000 or 50,000 acres. We want to maximize the production on every acre. And some of that will start with the planter, and then really maximizing the potential on every field includes the right seed placement, making sure that we've got it placed the right seed in the right field for the right conditions, making sure that we've got the right population for those particular fields, fertility, making sure that we've got the right herbicide strategy. So all of those things incorporate the plan and how we're going to work with it. And I think working with your agronomist, working with your seed advisors and your chemical reps and so on will really help make sure that you're maximizing your potential from an agronomics perspective.
Absolutely. Can you elaborate a bit more on what sort of value this brings to your farm to actually take the time to do this planning? When you have time right now to actually sit and plan this out rather than just, I know no one really wings seed placement, but you get where I'm going.
Yeah, for sure. It's seed is pretty complex, and particularly around corn. You know, we can have some forgiveness in some of the cereal crops and in the soybeans even, but with corn, we got to make sure that we've got hybrid selection. We know which hybrids are flex hybrids, which ones tend to be more of a fixed year, which hybrids respond well to higher populations, and which ones will respond better to lower populations. And it's important to know what kind of fertility that we have to support those. For instance, we've seen areas where guys will say, okay, I want this hybrid. I've seen it in trials. My neighbor's growing this hybrid. I really want this hybrid. So yeah, I'm gonna plant it, and I'm gonna plant it at and aim for a 34,000 final stand, because that's what I've heard it responds well to. Well, that might be all fine and well, but if that farmer doesn't have the fertility, doesn't have the soil structure to support that kind of final end population, then we have to work with them and say, okay, what do you have? So look at your soil test results, look at the types of soil that you have in your fertility program, and then let's figure out a game plan that will work for you. And maybe that's the same hybrid. Maybe it's just reducing that population back to 30,000 final population or a 32,000 final population, what have you. But it may be changing up that and working through and with another hybrid to actually maximize the full potential.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to touch a bit on what questions farmers should actually be asking their agronomists? Because I know lots of times when it comes to planning, producers are like, yeah, I should talk to my agronomist, but what is that? What are those key questions they should be asking?
Yeah, so what are the results with those hybrids? How has it compared to hybrids that I've been growing before? Can you show me information or data around those hybrids on my soil type, my fertility program, my row width, my population? So those things are all the questions that farmers should be asking their agronomists. And then really, how can you help me maximize that potential yield on my farm? And those are the things that our agronomists need to be ready to answer those questions and help with the farmer, because everybody has a different situation, and it's really on a prescriptive approach. And that's the type of approach I guess we've taken for several years now at Pride, is making sure that we're taking that prescriptive approach to each and every individual customer.
So, looking beyond just springtime and planting, can you talk a bit about marketing and how you need to really pay attention to that when it comes to actually selecting what sort of crops you're going to be planting?
Yeah, well, that's always on top of mind is the marketing piece, right? It's great to start out right, get our planter ready. We're ready to plant our crops. We look at the right conditions to plant in. We want to make sure that we've got the right weather to plant in. Not that we control the weather, but we're on the watch out with Mother Nature, making sure that we're not planting ahead of a big rain or a cold front that comes in. But everything being equal, when we have the opportunity to plant that crop, and we're confident that we've put it into the right conditions and that we've got the right start and the crop's growing. But prior to that, I think we've got to look at what our potential is in marketing that crop. What do we want to do with it? What's our end goal there? So set those goals and then develop a plan around that. I just looked at the closing markets here prior to heading into the holidays, into New Year's, and the futures market on a corn and soybean ratio is starting to favor corn for the new crop. The old crop, it certainly was leaning heavy on soybeans, but we're starting to favor corn. So um, if we've made our cropping decisions, if we've made our decisions on which types of crops we're going to plant, then it starts into where we're going to market it and what type of plan that we're going to have. And that's working with marketing professionals, working with your elevators, making sure that you've got some advice, attending those conferences that talk about marketing and some of the analytics behind that as we head into the spring. Maybe it's a year that we want to look at an investment in more storage and more space. Maybe it's a year that we need to look at storing some of the crop and selling some later on the futures. Again, everybody is got a different situation. So I think taking that prescriptive approach, taking that approach that I got to do what is right for my operation and what's right for me is the right approach. So really the marketing planning should be starting now, and have a game plan and be flexible in that plan. Not every plan is going to we're going to be able to follow it through exactly the way we planned it in January. Uh, but if we start with a good plan and a sound plan, then we can make adjustments as we go through as well.
However, for those that might just be tuning in right now, do you want to just re-highlight the importance of actually following that crop rotation if you can, not just
Yeah,
following the market?
that following that crop rotation is paramount for a lot of different reasons. It's not, and it's for a lot of agronomic reasons. It helps with your soil structure, it helps with disease management and pest management, and so on. But again, it really comes down to treating and practicing good stewardship when we look at all the technology that we have to protect our crops and making sure that we're using that crop rotation. That's the name of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You just can't seem to say that enough.
No.
So when you are looking towards 2021 as a part of Pride Seeds, is there anything you guys are specifically working on tackling agronomically? Any challenges that you guys have seen that you guys are maybe looking at with hybrids?
Yeah, no, it's again, evaluating. We've taken the hybrids. We've got a pretty good plan on which hybrids we want to see injected into that lineup. We've got some really sound data that we've accumulated over the last 2 and 3 years with a lot of these hybrids, and it's really about putting that into another look and broadening out that look. So we've got a scope that we're confident that we can make those recommendations. So that from that perspective, that's the same for every year. Interesting things on the horizon, and technology around soil mapping and so on. That's always interesting, and we've got folks on the team that take more interest in that, and certainly are better versed than I am in terms of being able to work with some of that. But those are the types of things that we're working towards again this year, just to make sure that we're bringing the best possible solutions to farmers and to our customers if possible.
Do you want to touch on the importance of growing a few different hybrids on your farm rather than growing the same hybrid year after year? And also, kind of a double wing question: how many hybrids should people be growing, especially when it comes to corn?
Yeah, well, that's sometimes a matter of preference. We've got customers that on a smaller scale only want to look at 1 or 2 hybrids. Sometimes customers on a large scale only want to look at 1 or 2 hybrids. But I think, again, looking at on a field by field basis, on more of a prescriptive approach, um, when we look at hybrids, and it's always something that we struggle with because there's a lot of hybrids on the market. We've got 72 hybrids in our lineup alone, and so you hone it in on your heat unit, and then from there, on my farm, for instance, where we farm at home, we'll grow 3 different hybrids, and it's more of that shorter, medium, and long-term hybrid. I guess I'm not much of a gambler, and I like to hedge my bet a little bit. So I want to make sure that I don't know when the right weather conditions are at flowering. We know typically that we're going to flower around the latter part of July and into the 1st of August. But if we're into a situation where we're in really droughty situations, or we have areas that's excessively hot and moisture, I don't want everything flowering all at the same time. And today we can put a lot of our crop in over a 3 day period, a 3 or 4 day window at planting. So that means that we want to make sure that we're spreading out and really utilizing the weather, the right weather that we have through that flowering window. So that's one of the reasons that picking different hybrids is important. The other part of that is really the trying to maximize that yield and grain quality. And we don't know sometimes in Western Canada, for instance, what the fall weather will bring, and whether the hybrids that we grow maybe we've hedged a little bit along the longer side of the maturity. So dry down is important. Harvest moisture is important. If we get into a year that we don't see a lot of sunshine and a lot of heat, it delays that crop and delays the crop into the fall where we're going to have wet conditions and harvest conditions. So um, having some of that earlier maturity hybrids is going to be important for a lot of our farmers, and that's kind of why we look at that in this. But it's more on a field by field or farm by farm approach. And if it ends up being that, hey, I got 6 different hybrids across my operation that maximize my potential, then 6 is the right number. If it's 4 hybrids, that's the right number, or 2, etc. So it depends. And I know I sound like I'm a bit elusive on that answer, but it really does come down to the farm and what's right for that operation. There's no magic number that says, yeah, you need to plant 3 hybrids. It's about maximizing that value for all of those reasons that I mentioned. So.
Okay, so you said you're not much of a gambler. However, if I'm a producer and I'm looking at and there's probably no magic number here either, but if I'm a producer and I'm looking at a brand new hybrid to put on my farm, I've never planted it before, what percentage should I be putting in of a new hybrid on my farm?
Yeah, so if you're planting a hybrid that you've never seen before, and that you're comfortable with the data that your agronomist and your crop advisor has given you, and there's good supportive data that matches up well with the hybrids that you're very comfortable with and that you have been growing on the farm, then again, it's a matter of preference. Myself, I probably would look at a new hybrid at 25% of my hybrid that I'm going to mix in that maturity. So if I've got a 2900 heat unit or a 95-day hybrid, I'm going to put X number of units in of the hybrid that I like and that it's been a proven hybrid. So maybe I'll go with 80% of that one and 20% of the new hybrid to have a good look at it.
So when it comes to hybrid selection, earlier you were talking about soil mapping, some of those technologies. How does soil mapping actually play into your hybrid selection? Does it have any impact?
Yeah, for a certain amount. When we look at soil mapping and digital ag, a lot of farmers are equipped with yield monitors. They're equipped with a lot of different digital pieces now, and I think uh, us knowing what hybrids perform on what types of soils, what populations those hybrids best excel at, is important. So we do work with a couple of independent companies and place hybrids in there to get some data back, so we can make some of those recommendations. We're not in the digital ag business. We're not pushing a complete portfolio or program. There's lots of different ones out there, and I think it depends on each individual farmer again of what they're set up with, but be able to have the data to support our hybrids and make sure that our varieties are supported, that we understand what they how they perform best is key. And if we have some soil mapping and some data that backs that up, then that's all the better.
So we're through the holidays now. I know some people might be kind of facing the January blues and the or like I'm in southern Alberta and we seen 7 degrees yesterday and it is the fields are completely bare. You might be getting a little bit of the itch of spring fever. Obviously we can do some planning and stuff, but do you want to talk about some of the important things that you like to do as far as taking care of yourself?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I guess my wife is probably the one that kind of sets that tone for me. Um, you know, uh, It is important though. When we can plan for our planting, we can plan for what we want. We have our goals for our agronomic practices and how do we want to maximize our business, and how do we want to maximize every acre that we plant. And that's all fine and well. We're going to have goals to market, and we're going to lay out a plan for that. But I think it's important to make sure that we're looking after ourselves too. And we talked just before the program here that we're still in this pandemic. We know going into 2021 that we're still going to be fighting that, and it's important to keep our physical and our mental well-being in check, and that means being able, we miss the farm shows, we miss talking with farmers, we miss driving in the laneways and having those one-on-one visits, and one thing that COVID and this pandemic has taught us is that we have a lot of resources available to us. And you mentioned not traveling before. I was in an airplane, I think 52 times, 53 times in an airplane a year ago, and this year, in 2020 rather, I was in an airplane twice, and that flight came in February, early before the pandemic. Since then, I haven't been in an air travel. I haven't really traveled a lot, but we've communicated. And we've been able to communicate online, a series of webinars. We have Teams meetings, we have Skype, we have a lot of different things, and I think it's important for us to engage ourselves. Important for farmers to be able to participate in these meetings and these sessions, and if you want to talk to your agronomist, reach out, and we're happy to be able to talk online as we're doing now, virtually, and those are all very important pieces. I mentioned Southwest Ag conference is coming up this week. It's going to be different. I've attended it since its inception. It's the first time I can remember that I'll be attending online. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it allows us to still educate ourselves. It allows us to keep our minds and keep our mental well-being in check, and physically get out and make sure that we're enjoying the fresh air and the sunshine when we have it, and make sure we're in good shape. We don't want to get sick. Wear a mask. Stay at home when you can. Make sure that we're fighting this so that we're all well, and we can get to the spring and enjoy what we love to do as farmers, and that's planting a crop and harvesting that crop. And that's got to be part of our plan. There's 5 things that we got to really look at when we look at planning, and to me, that's number 5, but it's a very important one.
Absolutely. And you bring up a really interesting point that I don't necessarily always think of. I'm talking about how I'm not traveling, but it brings up opportunity to kind of bridge that gap between, like I said, I'm in Southern Alberta, you're in Wyoming, Ontario right now, and it's I'm able to participate and talk with you. So it's very interesting that way, at least, to be able to kind of close that gap and have interaction with farmers I might not otherwise be able to interact with.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's technology has offered us a lot of things, and some of this technology has been around for a few years, but we just didn't take advantage of it until we had to. So, but I do think getting ready I'm optimistic for 2021. I'm not sure that, just because we turned over the calendar year into 21 from a 20, that's not going to change a lot of things. But I think being optimistic, having a goal, setting your goals, setting your plans, I think it's really important. And we there's a lot of different courses, a lot of different things that we can take as farmers and as people in the ag industry, and I think we need to all take advantage of those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, though, on a optimistic note, you were talking earlier about the World Juniors. What's the bets on tonight's game?
Well, I don't. I mentioned before, I'm not really a betting person. I take calculated risks, And there's nothing more that irks me when some commentators will say, well, they're already looking to the next round before they've played that game. They had, thank goodness we got through the quarterfinals the other night, and we got past it. But I almost thought we jinxed ourselves when one of the commentators said, well, looking into the semifinals, this is how it's going to match up, and we hadn't even played the first period of the quarterfinal game yet. So, but
Yeah,
I think Canada
it's bit
does
us in
have
the
a
butt
really,
before.
pardon me.
I said it's bit us in the butt before that,
It
predicting too
certainly
far ahead.
has, yeah. So I guess being an ex-goaltender, I got some superstitions, so I won't put a guarantee out there or say something outside of that. But I do feel that we do have a pretty strong team. I think one of the commentators said it could be the strongest team we've ever put on the ice. To me, that'll be told when if we win the championship, but we can't make that bold of a statement
We
quite yet. But they do have a
we
very strong
cannot.
team.
Yeah, and now that you're saying this out loud, I'm feeling like I shouldn't talk about World Juniors at all in the air until it's done,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
Well,
don't want to be one of the
we'll
commentators that's messing this up.
yeah, we'll wish the guys an awful lot of luck, and I'm sure that they my hat is off to the whole International Ice Hockey Federation. Though they've been able to manage this tournament. It's in your home province, north of you quite a bit, but they've been
Yeah.
able to keep things, albeit under the bubble, and for the most part pretty healthy going forward for all these kids playing, and that's a wonderful thing. And I just hope that we can continue the rest of that Canada's game, we'll call it. We'll continue the rest of the tournament healthy, and it comes out on the right side of it, and we win another title, Team Canada.
Yes, absolutely. And on that note, we are going to wrap up because this chat is already over. It's amazing how quick it goes. It's so great to be able to talk to new people all the time and to have your insights, Doug. It's awesome. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure producers, how can producers reach Pride Seeds agronomists if they are looking for that bit of interaction or some knowledge?
Yeah, our website, prideseed.com. Our agronomists are all on Twitter and social media. So do a search under Pride Seeds, and you'll find a number of our agronomists. We have agronomists in Quebec, Ontario, Maritimes, two in Western Canada. So we have a good group of agronomists and an agronomy team, and if you have to fall back on anybody in the interim, I guess I'm still here to help with some advice. Although I'm not as much in the field as I was, but I certainly enjoy it. I'll participate and get in the field as much as I can because that's how I learn too. So.
That's terrific. Thank you very much, Doug. And I hope you all the best in 2021. And I look forward to, I'm sure, speaking to you before the end of the year again.
Very much appreciated, Kara, and all the best to you in the new year and your family and your team there as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all that tuned in today. It is always so much fun having you guys around. I am hosting all week long, so please join in, tune in for the fun. We are on at 1 p.m. Mountain Time or 3 p.m. Eastern, or I know you Saskatchewan folks always seem to come out of the woodworks right about now. 2 p.m. Central. We are on live Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. So please feel free to join in and don't be afraid to get out here and give your questions and your comments. We love hearing from you. Tomorrow we have Marty Seymour of FCC on to discuss some trends. As I said, this week is an entire Outlook week. We're going to be talking 2021 and what we're looking forward to. So he'll be on Tuesday, and Wednesday we'll have Brennan Turner on with Farm Lead, and he'll be talking all about the markets. So please join in. It'll be great, and I look forward to talking to all of you then. Thank you.